Hey everyone and welcome to Stryder Hearthstone. I put out new Battlegrounds videos every week with hero guides, new hero reviews, and crazy game moments. So stay up to date by hitting that subscribe button down below and the bell to turn on notifications. So Blizzard dropped a ton of patch notes today affecting a lot of existing heroes and minions. Let's take a dive and see what's been changed. So the first thing on the docket is Bartendotron has been removed from the Battlegrounds hero pool. I think with the power creep of new heroes such as Grandmaster Omu, it's not a surprise. Knowing Blizzard's style, Bartendotron will somehow come back in a future update with probably an OP hero power. So we'll see what comes out of Bartendotron. This probably is not the last time you'll see him in the Battlegrounds. So next, I think is one of the biggest changes of these patch notes to heroes, and is also a much requested change. So a nerf to Ragnaros. His new hero power is instead of killing 20 enemies to get Sulfurous, you now need to kill 25 enemy minions. And once you get Sulfurous, it no longer gives you a +4/+4 buff. It gives you a +3/+3 buff. I think this is a pretty heavy-handed swing, so Blizzard probably definitely has the internal data to back up this decision, but in my opinion, I think they could have gone with one or the other and then just tweaked it as it went along, rather than making a massive adjustment to both the quest and the effects of the quest. Ultimately, this first part, I don't think it changes too much. I think in about half of the cases, I think you'll still get your quest done by the time you have 9 gold. But I think it now makes it more likely than not that you're not going to have it completed by the time you have 8 gold. So I think about half the cases, I'd say it delays the effect by 1 turn. And with this +3/+3 effect, I don't know if this is going to be enough to make Ragnaros a tier 1 minion anymore. I think this might put him in the low tier 2 minions. But yeah, we'll see what comes out of it, and hopefully if he becomes too weak, maybe Blizzard can go in and tweak this number or go back and tweak this number again. Next is another huge change to Maiev Shadowsong, another tier 1 hero. So the new hero power is instead of giving the minions +1/+1, it now just gives it +1 attack. This pretty much caps Maiev to having a limit of 3 health minions unless you go for Vulgar Homunculus. There's really no other tier 1 minions you're getting with more health. I think this will be huge for Maiev, because if you're going to power level to 4, Tavern tier 4 now, with 3 health minions, you're going to lose a lot more fights, and you're going to have a lot less health by the time you get to tier 4. I think the hero power is still strong because it allows you to get those triples and delay those triples. So I think that part is still good. I think this is a pretty fair change to Maiev. It'll be interesting to see if, based on this change, if the strategy of just staying on tier 1 and then power leveling to 4 is still the optimal way to go. We'll definitely have to wait and see on this one. Next is Chenvaala. So the new hero power is after you play 3 elementals, reduce the cost of upgrading the tavern by 3. Previously this was 2. So this is a 50% increase in the reduction of the hero power. I think this is pretty significant, and I think even if you're playing Chenvaala and you don't force elementals, there's still enough elementals in the game that you can either just play as standalone good elementals, like the one on Tavern tier 3 with Divine Shield. Plus there's also just a lot of elemental tools, such as Refreshing Anomaly, the one with the battle cry that gives your next refresh 0 cost. I think you can still casually string together a couple elementals on each tier to trigger the effect without forcing elementals, and I think this change will actually have a pretty big impact on Chenvaala, and I think this might put him pretty high up there with close to the powers of Omu. And I think with this new hero power, I think you'll be consistently getting to Tavern tier 5 by turn 7 or turn 8 pretty easily. Next is a rework to a classic hero. So with Patchwork, now instead of starting at 50 health, you now start at 55 health. I think, to be honest, they could have just brought this back up to pre-nerf levels of 60 health and Patchwork would have been okay. But I like that they're looking at this and thinking of ways to revisit old heroes. So yeah, I don't think this change is going to do too much, but we'll see how Patchwork does in HS replay. And next is another relatively classic hero getting reworked. So Sindragosa, her new hero power is at the end of your turn, frozen minions get +2/+1 instead of previously +1/+1. I think this will be a pretty minor change, and it doesn't make Sindragosa broken all of a sudden. But I think this will be nice because it'll make it more easy to at least tie fights in the early couple of games. And I think this will definitely improve the pick rate and the win rate of Sindragosa without making her too broken. So this is a nice change, but still not enough to probably make her competitive with some of the newer heroes. And finally, the last hero change is King Mukla. So with his hero power, now there's a chance to give King Mukla a big banana that gives a minion +2/+2. I don't think this change is still going to be enough to make King Mukla competitive. I think the biggest issue is still that you're just giving bananas to the rest of your lobby at the same time. And furthermore, because this is just a random chance, it makes it that much worse. I think they could have just gone with the Chenvaala or the KT method and added a counter so that every X number of times you use your hero power, you know you're getting a bigger, chunkier banana. I think that would have been better than just making it random, but we'll see what this randomness is like. If it ends up being roughly a 50% chance to get a big banana, maybe that ends up being fine. But yeah, based on this, I think King Mukla is still going to be pretty underwhelming. Next, moving on to Battleground Minions updates. So Whirlwind Tempest has been removed from the Battlegrounds minion pool. This is the elemental where if you have a Wind Fury minion, it gives it Mega Wind Fury, so lets it attack 4 times. I don't think this was a decision made based on stats or how that minion was doing in the game. I think this is one of those purely feels bad decisions that Blizzard is trying to fix. When you have a big minion with Mega Wind Fury as your first attacker, it really emphasizes the impact of whoever attacks first has an advantage, because if your Mega Wind Fury minion attacks 4 times before your opponent even has a chance to react, depending on your enemy's comp, that really puts them at a strong disadvantage, and the outcome of that fight would have drastically changed if, say, your enemy attacked first instead. So yeah, I think that's just a feels bad moment that they're trying to reduce and get rid of from Battlegrounds. And finally, a huge nerf to Jandice with the death of Pogo Hopper, one of the most classic minions that has been in Battlegrounds for a long time and has always been the dream for heroes such as Shudderwalk and Bran, is now taken out. I'm personally surprised that they didn't just tweak Jandice's hero power so that, for example, it no longer retains enchantments when you use your hero power on a minion. I think that would have been a better way to nerf her hero power rather than just taking Pogo Hopper out of the game completely. But yeah, with this, Jandice I think is definitely going to go down a bit in win rates, but I think she's still going to be a very dominating tier 2, tier 1 hero by being able to exploit battle cries with Murlocs or recycling battle cries with Amalgadon, or just getting really chunky battle masters with her hero power. So next is a change to Selfless Hero. He is now, or she, I guess, is now a tier 2 minion instead of a tier 1. I think the point of this is probably to reduce the number of selfless heroes available in the minion pool. I'm assuming that there'd be less tier 2 heroes available than tier 1 heroes. Otherwise, I don't think this really does too much, because no one's really on tier 1 hoping for a selfless hero as their turn 1 minion most of the time. And next, along the same lines, Deadly Spore is now tier 5 minion instead of tier 4. Again, I kind of think the intention is by making it a tier 5 minion, there's less of them in the pool, so less people go for that selfless hero, Deadly Spore, Baron comp, which is super not fun to play against. I think this is pretty alright of a change. It's still a kind of niche card to tech into your board if you're fighting someone with a lot of HP, such as Battle Masters or Elementals. Now with POGO Hopper being in the game, you're probably a little bit less likely to pick up a Deadly Spore if you're fighting heroes like Jandis. But yeah, I think this is a alright change for Deadly Spore, and I don't think it's going to be too much of an impact as a result of this change. So next we got changes to 2 of the pirates. So Salty Looter is now baseline 4/4 minion, and Bloodsill Cannoneer is now baseline 4/3 minion. I think it's really nice that Blizzard is looking into pirates and seeing how they can tweak pirates to make them a bit stronger. I definitely feel that Salty Looter is a bit underwhelming as baseline 3/3 for a tier 3 minion. I don't think this addresses the biggest issue of pirates, which is it's really hard to build an endgame competitive pirate board when you're fighting off against really big elementals or people with divine shields and poison minions. It's still really hard for pirates to compete against those kind of boards. So I still think as a whole pirates are going to struggle and not do too well against the other classes. But it's nice to see just kind of tweaks to pirates along the way, and we'll see how far these changes will go. Next we got some tweaks to elementals. So Party Elemental is now a 3/2 minion, and Arcane Assistant is now a 3/3 minion. I think both of these changes are alright. I wasn't expecting any buffs to elemental minions, to be honest. But when these first came out, it did feel a bit underwhelming for a tier 2 minion to be 2/2 in baseline stats, and a Arcane Assistant at tier 3 to be a baseline at 3/2 stats. That did feel a bit low, so I don't think these changes are going to be too significant. They're probably just minor tweaks to these 2 elementals. Next is another fairly small tweak to elementals. So Major Domo Executus. Now, at the end of your turn, give your leftmost minion +1/+1, and then repeat for each elemental you played this turn. So, you're now, even if you play no elementals the entire turn, you're at least guaranteed a minimum +1/+1 buff to your leftmost minion. And if you do play elementals, it's just that extra +1/+1 as compared to how it previously was. So, I think this is kind of a nice change. I think Major Domo is kind of an underwhelming tier 4 minion, especially when you think of how strong Nomi and Lil Ragnaros were just one tier above it. I think this change will push people to pick Major Domo a bit more often, and I don't think it's too strong of an effect. And finally, the 2 biggest changes to elementals I'd say in this patch would be Little Ragnaros is now a baseline 6/6 minion, but he's now on tier 6, and the Genie is now a tier 5 minion with a nerf to his baseline stats. I think this will drastically change the way that we've known to play elementals. I think Little Ragnaros at tier 6, I don't quite think he's going to be good enough anymore to be an auto pick. He's still going to be good in certain situations to pick up, but having him at tier 6 I think is going to drastically reduce the power level of elementals or at least change the way that you play elementals. I think the Genie going to tier 5 is super strong, considering the fact that it is now a tier 5 minion, so you could discover it when you're on tier 4, and it could still give you things like Little Ragnaros or a Amalgadon. So imagine being on Tavern tier 4, getting a golden, discovering the Genie, and then having that Genie drop an Amalgadon for you next turn. That's super strong, and I think it kind of encourages you to play elementals as more of a late game tribe and gradually build up your stats, rather than a high roll tribe where you're trying to rush to 5, you're trying to pick up those Little Ragnaros as fast as possible and either die or become OP. So I think this is healthy, and I really like this change, but I'm a little hesitant because I think the Genie is going to be really strong at tier 5, and I think he's almost going to be an auto pick every single time, even if you're not playing elementals, just for the possibility of getting those free Amalgadons. So that's all for the patch notes that came out today. These changes will all be live October 15th, so we'll see how this impacts the meta. I think overall, I think elementals are still going to be fine. They're still going to be pretty hard to deal with, and it's just going to be a little bit more fair with Little Ragnaros being moved to tier 6. At the very least, you're not dealing with massive minions by turn 10 as a result of getting buffed by Little Ragnaros. And with Big Ragnaros getting a nerf, he'll be a little bit less oppressive in the lobbies. With both him and Maiev kind of dropping in power levels, I think you'll get a bit of some slower games where you're not taking 25 damage by turn 8. But yeah, we'll definitely looking forward to checking out how the game shakes out on October 15th, and look forward to seeing how the win rates of these heroes all change. Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed the video, please hit that like button down below, and I'll see you next time in the Battlegrounds.